Hello and welcome. I'm Idle Jester, and this is my Eve story. Episode 1, The Birth of a Cap. So, I started playing Eve a few weeks after its release. I think it was 2003, 2004, something like that. And back then, the game was a hell of a lot harder for new players. Even though everyone was new. There wasn't really much help, in-game or out of game, to understand what to do. So I never really got into the game. I always felt like, I don't know, it made me feel stupid. And like many other people, I'd play for a few days, a few weeks, and then I'd get bored. Or I'd just be over confused or frustrated. I had no idea what I was doing, where I was going, how to fit a ship, if I even knew what ship I should be fitting. And it was just truly overwhelming, and I never really gave the game the chance that it deserved. EVE Online was always there in the back of my mind, begging me to give it a chance. I felt that it was the right game for me. The game was definitely something I was interested in, but the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, and I was playing on my own, kind of put me off a lot. But I really wanted to give it another chance, a real go at it to learn what to do. And every time I was bored, it would come up, oh, maybe I should go and play EVE again. I would always think about jumping back on, but I never really got around to it. So for the first few years after EVE had come out, I would download it every now and again. Probably, 2-3 times a year it would come up, and I'd give it a quick go. I'd jump in, but I'd quit after just a few weeks. I'd start with new characters, and I'd get a fresh look at the game, try and learn the basics over again. I'd pay for the first month. I would have so many plans. I wanted to make my own corporation. I wanted to become a pirate. I'd keep telling myself that I'm going to go and build ships and become a billionaire. And it would always end the same way, and I would always never get around to it. It wasn't until the 10th of January 2011 that I really got into EVE, that I managed to last longer than a few weeks. It'd been a few years since I actually got into EVE, since I tried it the last time. It was just after Christmas. Me and my younger brother both built brand new PCs for Christmas. And at the time, we was playing a lot of Xbox games together, as I had moved up north of England and he was living down south. So playing online games was a good way to stay in touch with each other. So we came online one night and we'd both just finished work. I think we was playing Call of Duty, one of them. I don't know which one. I think everyone was playing Call of Duty back then. And at the time, he said to me, "Have you seen that game, EVE Online?" I told him that I'd played it, and I quit, and I played it, and I quit. And I told him, a few things about the EVE, but I also gave him the warning that it could get really boring, and it's a very hard game to get into. And we spoke about it for a few weeks, and he was looking more and more into it. He was looking for more information on the internet. So, on that night of January the 10th, we signed up for the free trial. It had been about 2 years since I played it last, and it was about time I gave it another chance. So that night, we both jumped on Skype. We signed up for the free trial. I think it was 14 days at the time. We didn't know about the buddy, invite a friend kind of thing. So we both just started brand new trials. And I remember sitting there and listening to the narration of all of the different races. And I decided I'm going to play a Ma. All the other times I played as a Galante. But I don't know, I wanted the big shiny banana ships this time. I think it was the lasers actually that made me want to play a Ma. We did look at some of the ships online before we signed up. And he went Caldari. I can't remember his character's name. Something Bully. I'm not sure why. And that was it. So that night, my Eve story started, and Raven Vale was born. So we didn't realize that being a different race would start in a different zone. So we started up, we followed the first few things. I think you start in space and you have to fight a rat and go through an acceleration gate at the time. I think that was the starting tutorial. And then it tells you to deliver a package 2 jumps away. And that's when they introduce you to your starting agents. As most Eve players would know, you know. So there's 5 starting agents. And I thought, oh, this is where we're going to meet. I got there before he did, because I already knew the basics of the game, and I was just refreshing. So I got to the starter agents and waited for him. He told me that he'd got there, and I invited him to fleet. And I couldn't find him. He said he was outside the station. I undocked, I had a look. He wasn't there. He said he was inside the station. I checked the guest list. He wasn't there. So then I looked in the top corner and it says where you are. Being someone that never really gave the game a chance, that's not something I actually looked at. I didn't need to know what systems I was in before. And he told me the name of his system. So I went into Peoples and Places and I typed it in and I headed there. And I think it was about, it's got to have been over 20 jumps. So I went to him and we did the agents on his side. And that probably took, it's got to have been over a week to do all the starting agents. We could only play for a few hours on the night. So I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks into the game when we had actually finished those agents. And I decided I wanted to do hauling. I wanted to get in my bestower, which is the ship that I got given. No, it wasn't. It wasn't the ship I got given because I didn't do the starter missions there. Oh, what is is it the Tyra that the Caldari one is called? Anyway, I got into whatever industrial ship the agents gave me. And I went looking into contracts. And that's when I made a big mistake. So by this point, I had a couple of million ISK from doing the starting missions. And wanting to do holding contracts, you have to have collateral, which I didn't know about. And I found one. One that I could afford, and it didn't pay very well, but it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do some space trucking. So I accepted the contract, and I headed down to where I had to pick it up. And the first mistake I made was I didn't realize how big the cargo was. I didn't check. I thought the cheaper ones are going to be small for smaller ships, and that's how it's going to work. But it wasn't. So I lost, I think, 10 million at the time because I couldn't fit it in my hauler. It just wouldn't go in, no matter what I did to it. I've put full T1 cargo expanders on, and it still wouldn't fit. So that was my first mistake. So at this point, my younger brother was doing military missions, security missions, level 1. And he'd gathered up a bit more ISK than I had. And he decided he's going to give me ISK to get another contract, as long as he looks at the contract first. Now, in all MMOs that I've played with my younger brother, he's always been the type of person that wants to get rich. He's very conscious of how much he spends, how much he can earn, and is it worth doing. So him looking at the contract was probably a better idea, and I should have done that in the first place. So he went looking through the contracts, and he found one. It was a very small cargo. You did need an industrial ship for it, but it fit in quite easy, and I didn't need the cargo expanders. So I decided I'd put some armor on my hauler, and I went and picked it up. So it says I had to go to some weird named system, and it was an nullsec system, which I know now, but back then I didn't. So it was you know, a few letters and a few numbers. So I picked up the contract, I picked up the package in HiSec, and I was just flying through, and I actually got to the system. I went through LowSec, which I didn't even know what LowSec was. And I went through NullSec, and I didn't see not one other pilot. And I got to the station, and I pressed dock. Docking denied. So I thought, oh, it must be bugged. There must be something wrong. So I logged out in space. And I think back then, I don't think there was a log off timer. So if you logged off in space, you literally just flew off and then disappeared. And I relogged, and I tried again, and I did it again and again, and I told him, you know, I can't get in this station, I can't deliver the package. And I spoke up in local, there was a few people in local, and I asked, why can't I dock up at this station to deliver this package? And they laughed at me, and they told me that I'd fallen for a scam, that the person has made off with my couple of million, and I would never get into that station to drop the stuff off, because it's a player-owned station, and I don't have the rights to dock in there. And that was the first time that the game really gave me a kick in the balls, and I really felt like the game wasn't fair, and I was ready to quit. Okay guys, that is it for episode 1 of my Eve story, The Birth of a Capsuleer. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to see the next video, and I'll see you then.